Welcome to the deep dive.
Uh.
Today, we're tackling something, well, absolutely fundamental in our digital world, cyber resilience. And this isn't just about, preventing cyber attacks, because let's face it, they feel almost inevitable now.
Yeah, seems that way.
Instead, we're looking at how organizations can minimize the impact when, not if those incidents happen, making sure they can still hit their core goals.
Exactly. Think of traditional cybersecurity like locking your front door. Still vital, obviously.
Right.
But cyber resilience, that's about having a plan B, C, and D for when someone does manage to get in. It's really about business continuity, keeping things running despite digital problems.
And that's what we're really going to unpack today. To guide us, we're diving deep into the World Economic Forum's The Cyber Resilience Compass 2025 report. And this isn't just theory.
No, not at all.
It's packed with hard-won insights from cyber leaders globally, put together with the University of Oxford through consultations, workshops, real groundwork.
And that's what makes it so useful, I think. It's grounded in what's actually happening out there. Not just best practices on paper, but the real strategies, the tactics organizations are using on the front lines.
The challenges too, right? And how they're adapting.
Absolutely. The struggles are just as important to learn from.
So our mission today, to pull out the most crucial, actionable stuff from this report for you, whether you're knee-deep in IT or just trying to get your head around protecting your organization.
Yeah, this is for everyone involved.
We'll focus on the practical steps. And like you said, it goes way beyond just the tech fixes.
It really does. The report organizes things quite neatly, actually, into 7 interconnected categories. It gives us a good structure.
Okay, what are they?
So there's leadership, then governance, risk and compliance, people and culture, huge one, business processes, technical systems, crisis management, and finally, ecosystem engagement.
Right, covering all the bases, and we'll be using concrete examples throughout.
Yeah, the report is full of them. Frontline practices from different organizations illustrating each category. We can learn from their successes and sometimes their stumbles.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Learning from others' experiences.
Exactly. Seeing what might apply to your own situation. Before we jump in, though, just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, risk.quantumsecurity.ai.
Great. Okay, let's get started. First category up.
Leadership. The report calls this the foundation, sets the goals, the direction for everything else related to cyber resilience.
Makes sense. It has to start at the top.
Absolutely. The report really stresses how vital it is for top leadership to pinpoint what they call the crown jewels.
Crown jewels.
Yeah.
The absolute must-haves.
Yeah. Your most valuable assets, core processes, key products, the stuff that if it goes down, the business really suffers. And leadership needs to make the resilience of these things the top priority.
Okay, let's unpack that. It's not just listing them, is it? It's about making tough calls on where to put the money and effort.
Precisely. The report mentions Maersk after the NotPetya attack. Huge impact.
I remember that.
They had to really dig into which applications were genuinely business critical. And that assessment directly drove where they invested to build back stronger.
So it connects business impact directly to security investment, not just a tech decision.
Exactly. It was strategic. Which highlights leadership's other big role, defining and owning the organization's risk tolerance or risk appetite.
Ah, the balancing act. Growth versus stability.
Right. How much risk are we willing to take to hit our goals? That sets the context for everything else. It ensures risks are taken consciously, aligned with the business strategy.
Okay, so identify crown jewels, define risk tolerance. What else for leadership?
Cultivating the culture. This is massive. Yeah. Leadership has to actively embed a cyber resilience culture right through the organization, top down.
Meaning everyone feels some responsibility, not just the IT folks.
Yes. Everyone has a role.
Right.
We see examples like Siemens, where the CEO is personally communicating about security challenges, sends a powerful message.
And Petronas.
Their leadership mandated cyber resilience as a core business imperative, not optional. That really shifts the mindset across the board.
So visible commitment from the top is key. Does that mean micromanaging, though?
No, actually the opposite. It's about setting the overall parameters, the strategy, but then empowering local teams, those closer to the action, to make decisions within that framework.
Right. Balancing central guidance with local autonomy for agility.
Exactly. And fostering collaboration is huge, too. Building trust between the top leadership and the CISO, the technical teams. That relationship is critical.
How does that work in practice?
Well, back to Maersk. The CISO was able to quantify cyber risk in financial terms. That got the board's attention and secured funding.
Speaking their language.
Precisely. And Patronus integrating cybersecurity right into corporate decision-making shows that buy-in.
But the report must mention challenges too. Getting leadership time is hard.
Oh, definitely. Time constraints are huge. And translating complex tech stuff into clear business impact, that's a real hurdle.
So how do you bridge that gap?
The report has a great recommendation. Scenario planning and executive tabletop exercises.
Ah, like war games, but for cyber attacks.
Kind of, yeah. Walk leaders through realistic scenarios. Show them the potential impact on their business goals. It makes the abstract threat feel much more real.
Yeah, much more than just reading a technical report. Okay, that makes a lot of sense for leadership. What's next?
Next up is governance, risk, and compliance, or GRC. These are the mechanics, the structures, and processes for managing all that risk and meeting regulations.
So if leadership sets the direction, GRC is the roadmap and the rule book.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
It's about how you identify, assess, and manage cyber risks. Starts with defining the organization's risk profile, understanding vulnerabilities, potential impact.
And then figuring out who owns what.
Exactly. Clear ownership and accountability are crucial. The report highlights having risk owners across the business develop their own profiles.
Not just the CISO.
Right. People closer to the processes. Then you bring it all together for an organization-wide view.
That seems much more effective. Having business units own their piece of the risk. And a clear chain of command, obviously.
Absolutely essential. And regular reviews, too, because the landscape changes constantly.
And compliance is a big part of this, too, isn't it? Laws, regulations.
Huge. Legal, compliance, and cyber teams need to work really closely together. Stay on top of changes, make sure all the doxes are ticked. It's not just about avoiding fines. It strengthens your posture.
And then actually doing something about the risks. Mitigation.
That's the core of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Putting safeguards in place. And the report also mentions cyber insurance playing a more strategic role.
As a financial backstop.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Helping limit financial and reputational damage. CISOs and chief risk officers are looking at it more closely as part of the overall strategy.
But it's not a replacement for good security.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
You need to understand the policy details. And the report points out a common problem here.
Which is?
Often, risk owners outside IT don't fully get their cyber exposure. They still think, oh, that's the CISO's problem.
Ah, the silo effect. How do you fix that?
Well, Schneider Electric has an interesting approach with their key internal controls, or KICs. They embed accountability for cyber risk mitigation right into their standard 3 lines of defense framework.
So business and operational risk owners formally have to own it.
Yes. Makes it part of their day job, integrates it into existing risk management, removes ambiguity.
Any other examples?
Dubai's Electronic Security Center, DESC. Their approach to securing critical infrastructure, CII, is very structured. Risk-based, regulatory frameworks, and they even map dependencies between critical sectors.
Wow, that's complex. Shows the need for coordination, especially for essential services.
Definitely. It highlights that sector-wide view. Which brings us nicely to the next category, people and culture.
Right, the human element. Workforce, skills, awareness, the overall mindset.
Because ultimately, resilience isn't just tech, is it? It's about people. Even the best tools can fail if people aren't aware or don't follow procedures.
So finding and keeping talent is paramount.
Absolutely. The report stresses CIOs, CISOs, HR working together, strategies for hiring, continuous training, keeping people engaged long-term, partnerships with universities, ongoing learning.
And not just for the cyber team, right? For everyone.
Exactly. Empowering all employees with cyber awareness is just as critical.
Which leads to training programs.
Yes, but tailored ones. The report is clear. Generic advice on passwords isn't enough. Training needs to be context-specific to different roles. Make it relevant.
So understanding the tools and risks specific to, say, finance versus operations.
Precisely. That fosters real ownership and engagement. One size fits all just doesn't cut it.
What about the culture side?
Psychological safety. This is huge. Creating an environment where people feel safe reporting incidents or even their own mistakes without fear of blame.
Ah, so encouraging, speaking up.
Yes. Open communication is vital for catching things early. Policies that reward proactive reporting can really boost trust and transparency.
The report also mentions a common language.
Yeah, establishing a common language for cyber and risk across the whole organization helps break down silos, improves understanding between departments.
Consistent terms in training, risk frameworks, communications.
It fosters collaboration. But there's a big challenge noted.
The skills shortage.
Yep, widespread shortage of specialist staff globally puts huge pressure on existing teams, especially in a crisis.
A constant battle. Any positive examples on the people front?
Engro's practice with tabletop exercises is great. They involve stakeholders from all over ICT, security, senior management, legal, PR, operations.
Really cross-functional.
Totally. And preparing together like that has led to real improvements in their incident response plans, backup strategies, communication protocols.
Practice makes perfect, or at least better.
It really does. Repsol also gets a mention for continuous training across the board, right up to director level. Frequent crisis simulations, red teaming, tabletop scenarios.
They seem really committed to preparedness.
Yeah, and they feed the lessons learned right back into their strategies. Continuous improvement cycle.
Okay, so people and culture is vital. What's next on the compass?
Business processes. This looks at how you prioritize, design, and adapt your core functions with resilience baked in.
So making sure the business can keep running, even if systems are hit.
Pretty much. A key part is regularly prioritizing and tiering business services. And this isn't a one-off. Priorities change.
Right. Needs constant reevaluation to know what needs protecting most urgently in a crisis.
Exactly. And preparing for worst-case scenarios. Building adaptability and resilience right into operations from the start.
How do you do that? Redundancy.
That's part of it, yeah.
Right.
Backup systems, processes. Also sometimes accepting a calculated level of risk where full prevention is impractical. And strong information governance policies to limit data breach impact.
And like everything else, regular review.
Constantly. Keep processes aligned with business changes, threat landscape shifts, new regulations.
The report mentions critical infrastructure and military sectors being good examples here.
Often, yes. They focus heavily on eliminating single points of failure, separation of duties. It can be costly, but we're seeing that mindset spread, especially with regulators focusing more on operational resilience.
Any specific company examples?
UBS focuses heavily on rapid recovery of critical services. They develop workarounds proactively, use air-gapped data storage.
Air-gapped, like physically disconnected.
Essentially, yeah.
Hi.
Isolated from potentially compromised networks. They also have clear communication protocols and plan for delays from third-party providers, too.
Very thorough contingency planning.
It's about minimizing customer disruption. IMD Business School is another example. They focus on reducing account compromises and minimizing impact. Strong passwords, MFA for prevention, sure. But also limiting email exposure in sensitive areas, restricting downloads of confidential files to personal devices, damage control measures.
So prevention plus containment. A layered approach.
That's a hallmark of resilient processes.
Okay, that covers business processes, leading us to technical systems.
Yep. Now we get into the tech infrastructure itself. Designing, deploying, maintaining IT, OT, cloud security tools.
The more traditional cyber stuff, but viewed through that resilience lens.
Exactly. And a key point is that technical teams must understand business priorities.
So they protect what actually matters most to the business.
Right. Training tech staff on risk assessment, business impact analysis can help bridge that gap.
And using data.
Increasingly important. Real-time info, advanced analytics, AI, using data to prevent and predict incidents, improve detection and response.
And the basic controls are still crucial, presumably.
Absolutely. System hardening, MFA everywhere, critical, secure backups, log management, threat intelligence, essential preventative measures, and they limit impact, too.
But it's not just about buying the latest shiny tools.
No. The report stresses evaluating tooling based on problems to solve, desired outcomes, and the specific organizational context, not just following trends.
Makes sense. Are we getting better at the basics, though? Cyber hygiene.
Progress, yes. But consistent application is still a challenge, and technical debt, old, unsupported systems, remains a big vulnerability for many.
Legacy systems can be a nightmare. Any tech examples stand out?
Checkpoint Software's design philosophy is interesting. Assume anything that can go wrong will. Build systems to withstand multiple failures.
Designing for failure.
Kind of. And Splunk's outcome-driven approach to their Security Operations Center, their SOC, focus on quality, automation, data-driven decisions, collaboration, improving detection and response effectiveness.
Not just collecting alerts.
Right. And Siemens Energy providing managed detection and response MDR for Middle River Power's OT assets. Continuous monitoring, anomaly detection in complex industrial environments, helps with compliance too.
OT security is a whole different ballgame.
It really is. And speaking of managing risk effectively, just want to thank our sponsor again, risk.quantumsecurity.ai, for their support.
Great. Okay, after technical systems, we must be getting close to when things actually go wrong.
Exactly. Next up, crisis management. Responding to and recovering from incidents.
Being prepared for the inevitable, as you said earlier.
That's the core of it. Building and rigorously training dedicated crisis response teams is step one. Not just techies, but senior execs, multidisciplinary experts.
And doing that before the crisis hits.
Essential. Everyone needs to know their role, the plans, the comms channels, so they can act fast.
And having plans to follow.
Yep. Designing, reviewing, and regularly testing business continuity, disaster recovery, incident response plans. They need to be practical, detailed, tailored, and well understood.
Consistency across departments is key, too.
Vital. Defined processes, clear policies, applied everywhere for a coordinated response. Plus, clear decision-making protocols and who's responsible for what, especially as things escalate.
What about tech preparations for a crisis?
Establishing alternatives.
Yeah.
Secure data vaults, offline storage, out-of-band communication channels, ways to talk if the main network is down.
And communicating externally during a crisis, that seems tricky.
Crucial, though. Pre-planned strategies for talking to customers, partners, regulators, the public. Manage misinformation. Start rebuilding trust.
Does the report mention common pitfalls here?
Yeah, a couple. Effectively engaging third-party suppliers in exercises can be tough, and making sure all potential scenarios are considered, not just the obvious ones. Also, keeping meticulous records of decisions made during the crisis for later analysis.
Learning from what went right, not just what went wrong.
Definitely. Yaker BP gets a mention for integrating IP and OT expertise into their main emergency response framework. Robust plans, cross-functional training.
Breaking down those IT/OT silos for crisis response.
The key for handling both operational and cyber crises. And Henkel's approach to ransomware resilience is really insightful.
What are they doing?
They built a green network for rapid recovery, prioritized recovery using immutable backups, ones that can't be changed, enhanced procedures for getting end-user devices back online quickly.
Proactively tackling that specific ransomware threat.
Smart. It minimizes that potentially crippling downtime.
Okay, that's crisis management. What's the final category?
Last but not least, ecosystem engagement. How you interact with your wider network supply chain, customers, competitors sometimes, regulators.
Because you're only as strong as your weakest link, in a way.
Pretty much. Resilience is interconnected. First step, understand your dependencies upstream and downstream. And supply chains aren't always linear, right? You can be a supplier and a customer.
So mapping that ecosystem, then what?
Consistently assess risk bidirectionally. Not just your supplier's risk, but the risk you might pose to others. Use questionnaires, contracts, collaboration.
And responding together if something happens.
Yeah, shared incident response playbooks with key partners, cross-organizational exercises makes remediation smoother.
What about sharing information more broadly?
Vital. Sharing threat intel in trusted forums like ISACs Information Sharing and Analysis Centers or CERT Computer Emergency Response Teams helps everyone stay ahead.
And keeping up with the changing environment.
Engaging with regulators, industry bodies, adapting to new tech, new rules. The report really emphasizes that individual resilience depends heavily on the whole ecosystem, requires collaborative action.
Tackling shared vulnerabilities together.
Exactly. Mitigating single points of failure, optimizing scarce talent, working with regulators for a better environment overall.
Any examples of ecosystem collaboration?
The Business Resilience Council, BRC. They coordinated a multi-organization response to a big global IT outage in 2024. Their network allowed rapid analysis, collaboration, mitigation, collective defense in action.
Impressive coordination.
And Bangladesh EJOV CDITE, combating phishing, threat ID, detection support, alerts to stakeholders, promoting a proactive culture through information sharing at a national level.
Shows the power of coordinated intelligence.
Definitely. Strengthening the whole digital fabric.
Okay, so that's all 7 categories. Quite a journey.
It really covers the landscape. And the big takeaway as we wrap up is that cyber resilience isn't just nice to have anymore. It's fundamental.
A necessity for survival, almost.
Pretty much. And the focus has to shift. Trying to prevent every single incident. It's just not realistic with today's threats.
So it's about minimizing the impact when things do go wrong.
That's the crucial shift. And as we saw, there's no single magic bullet, no one-size-fits-all solution.
Every organization needs to tailor its approach
to its own context, its goals, its specific threats.
But learning from others, like through this report, is invaluable.
Absolutely. Seeing those frontline experiences, what worked, what didn't, how others are tackling these challenges, that's gold.
It provides practical guidance for making better decisions.
Exactly.
So here's a final thought for you, our listener, to mull over. Reflecting on those 7 categories: leadership, GRC, people and culture, business processes, technical systems, crisis management, and ecosystem engagement. Which one resonates most with the challenges your organization faces right now? And maybe more importantly, what's one concrete, actionable step you could take, maybe soon, to strengthen resilience in that specific area? You might even check out resources from our sponsor, risk.quantumsecurity.ai, as you think about those next steps.
Good call.
Because remember, this isn't just about listening and absorbing information. It's really about sparking action, isn't it?
It has to be.
And embracing that continuous adaptation needed in this constantly shifting digital world.